people ask me this a lot. It always goes back to that phone situation. It's really just being present with your kids. That's what I see the biggest issue is a lot of times with families is the time that they're spending. It's not necessarily the amount of time, it's the type of time you're with your.
Hello and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and our guest today is Anastasia Arauz. I am so excited about this one. I was telling her before we started recording. She is a registered play therapist. She has a master's degree in counseling, a postmaster's certification in couples and family counseling, and I'll read real quick her little biography. She has a successful private practice helping families break free from generational trauma. Based in Jacksonville, North Carolina, she's a beacon of hope for those seeking support, particularly in working with children and families. In 2022, Anastasia expanded her impact by venturing into coaching and collaborating with schools and parents. Her mission is clear: to guide families in developing a healthy mindset for building a balanced family system. Oh, I love it. And what we're going to really kind of talk about today is tips and ideas to help parents feel good about their parenting, even when they're on their own healing journey. Oh, I can't tell you how much I wish I had this. So welcome, Anastasia. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our discussion.
Yeah. This is just beautiful. Anything to help parents, those that are trying to go on their healing journey and try to be the best parents that they can be. And it's a struggle. So tell us about you and your practice.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a private practice. I had a private therapy practice here where I live, and I closed it because I changed my philosophy on how I wanted to help children. I had them in my office, me and the child, we were working, and all of a sudden one day it hit me that we really need parents involved. And so I really started working more with parents, right? I would have them come in, but it wasn't the model. It's not a model that therapy is really set up for.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it's mostly just individual, right? And so I would start having the parents come in, and then I'm like, I need to do this in a different way. And so I decided to close that practice specifically, and now I do everything virtually or in homes with families.
In their environment.
In their environment. And so I'm very big on, I'm great at connecting with the children and really figuring out kind of what's going on, and then really bridging that gap that the parents are struggling with. And then we work together to create a new way of doing things in the home that brings a lot of success and happiness and kind of lose that chaos that they're all doing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's awesome. Because I know even if you don't have trauma, parenting is tough.
It is tough.
It's tough.
It is. And I think we all have a little bit of trauma somewhere, right? None of us
we're not perfect.
Without something. And so I think giving ourselves grace a lot of times and just really being in the moment with your kids and being okay with what you're doing. Even if it's the wrong thing, you can fix it.
Right. It's all fixable.
Yeah. And kids are so resilient and they're forgivable and they want that. So that's one thing I really try to help parents with, that it's okay. It's okay what you're doing. Let's start from here.
Yeah, exactly. And not spend a lot of time focusing on beating up yourself about it. Because that's what I tended to do for sure. So I do have some questions, did you want to just go into more explaining about what you do and how you do it?
Sure. So what I would do is typically I have a group of moms that I work with. And so some of those moms I see individually, some of them are in the group. So we do a lot of discussions and talking and processing through that group, which is great because we all learn from each other. I learn just as much from them as they're learning from me.
Yeah.
And in the homes, it's really me getting to know the child, or in the school or virtually, and then bringing the parent in and us really, sometimes as kids get older, a lot of it is trust. They just don't, their trust with the parent is, there's something off a little bit. And I really try to help build that trust again. And it's not that did anything on purpose or just was bad at what they were doing. None of that. It's just something misaligned at some point. So I really try to help them realign and get back to it.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. I know, because I so often say, kids act out for a reason. It's just not like they wake up one day and they just decide to act a different way. There's always a reason, and we need to kind of dive in and find out what's going on. And so much of it, I think, yes, we make our mistakes, but there's also the children's perception and how they perceive it. And I feel, and I think you'll agree with me, it's important to let these children say what they are feeling or what their experience or what their perception is so that we can understand.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's hard for them to even have the language for that,
Yeah.
especially if parents in the home, like if you're not a family that's talking about your feelings a lot or processing or connecting on issues, they cannot do it. And so it's not their fault necessarily, and it's not your fault either because maybe you didn't grow up like that. Maybe your
Right.
family didn't. And I know like when I grew up back in like the 80s and 90s, things were different. We just didn't. It was like you did what you were told. You didn't ask
Yep.
questions. You just did it. There wasn't nobody really cared how you felt about taking the dishes or taking the garbage out, right? Like it was
Yeah. Yeah.
a bit what you were told. And I think now we still have to do what we're told. The kids still do, but there's a different way of going about
Right.
it. I don't know why it's like that. It's just a different kids are just different now, and it requires respect and really getting to understand them. And that's really what I try to help parents see.
I mean, that's something that we should have been doing all along. We just didn't realize it because, yeah, when I was growing up, as you can be seen and not heard,
Yeah.
and I can remember my mom vividly telling me that you never sass back to an adult. You always listen to what they say. You always do what they say. And that is such a dangerous, I mean, my mom didn't know, right? That was what she
Yeah.
grew up. We're just, and we kind of learn what we learn, and that's what we do. We don't know anything different. And so what I love is that you're helping these families unlearn what they were doing and learn how to do it differently.
Yeah, and that it's okay. And a lot of times we just feel guilty about years that have gone by or what. And I really just try to help parents see that because kids, their brains are still so malleable, right? And
Yeah.
they are so present and they're so egocentric, which can be good and bad at times, but they're so quick to repair. Like if you
Yeah.
realize that you're doing something that's a little off, just apologize. And I even do it. I have an 11-year-old and sometimes I'll snap or say things. I'll be like, man, I shouldn't have talked to you like that. I'm sorry. I should have said that. And so just really accepting, like we all make mistakes. We all do things
Just own up
that
to
we,
it.
yeah, own up to it.
Yeah, and a belief I had, and I talked to my son about this when he was probably about 8 years old. But a belief that I had too is that, when you become an adult, you got it together, and that you don't make mistakes. I don't know what made me think that, and I would imagine that children would just probably automatically go there and think that, right? And I was quite shocked when I got older and I found out that my parents made mistakes, and I remember having my son and my father were in the car with me. My son was probably about 8 years old, and we were having a conversation, and that popped up. And I realized I needed to get my son clarification on this. And so I remember saying to him, Corey, mom makes mistakes and dad makes mistakes. And I remember his face. He was so surprised. And he
Mm.
looked over at my dad and he's like, Grandpa, do you make mistakes? He said, Yeah, I make mistakes too. So just even that, like, that would have never crossed my mind.
Yeah, that's so good. It's funny you say that because I remember I went to counseling as like a young adult, probably my early 20s, and it was that therapist that helped me see that my mom made mistakes. Like I believe she was like never made
Yeah.
mistakes. She never had said to me that, and I just never came out. And so I was like, oh my gosh, she's like a person just like me, and she didn't know either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that really changed our relationship, our adult relationship, in that we're close now, and I think it was a result of me just like parsing through our relationship and doing my therapy and doing all the things I needed to do.
Right. Right. Yeah. Very interesting. Just it's so interesting how kids think, and let them talk. It's
Yeah,
fascinating what comes out of their mouth. It is
I know. I
absolutely. I mean, they see things so different, and I love to see things through children's eyes. It just gives you such a different, innocent
yeah,
perspective, right? So we need to let
it
them
does.
talk. We need to let them talk for sure. And I
Yeah, I
talk
agree.
about this all the time, and I'm going to say it again. My one daughter-in-law, she's so good with her kids that she's always been good about giving them a voice. And when they're upset, she always is very present with them and spends time with them. It's not just get over it, stop it. She really tries to help them walk through and regulate their emotions. And I so appreciate that. It's just, I wish more parents did that. That was one thing I was really careful of with Corey, with my son, is not correcting him in public. I was always like, come on,
Yeah.
let's step over here and have a little conversation.
Yes. Oh, that's good. That's the respect piece. Yeah, you
Yeah.
respected him as who human
Yeah.
as a person.
They're just, little adults with little, children's minds. But hey, thank you for listening so far. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to subscribe so you won't ever miss an episode. Okay, so my first question to you is, how can a parent balance their own healing journey while ensuring they provide a safe and nurturing environment for their children? I wish I had this about 30
Absolutely.
years ago.
I think it's being present. Kids really connect with this and our energy and our emotions and our reactions. And so if you have your own stuff, like trauma or stress or just limiting beliefs, they will unintentionally shape your parenting, right? And so I think knowing what's happening with you, what things have you been through that you have that are unresolved, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just realize that it's like start to resolve them, start to fix it, start to figure out how to get it right within you so it doesn't affect your parenting and your kids don't have to grow up with your unresolved trauma over your parenting.
Right, right, right. I mean, self-awareness is such, I talk about that all the time, and that's really the first thing that we need, and as a parent, I mean, is your reaction to the child's mistake over the top, or is it line up with the mistake, right? So, and if it's over the top, that's where you kind of really need to take a step back and kind of look at yourself, right?
Right. And I think a lot of times if we've had a lot of childhood trauma or we've had a lot of negative experiences growing up, that we can sometimes live in a state of fight flight and not even realize
True.
it. And so we're constantly in this fear state in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even realize it. So I think just even taking a step back and being like, am I living like that? Am I living in survival mode? And I think all of us do it at times.
Sure, sure.
But are you doing it with your parenting? Are you able to parent not in that way, parent in a love, not fear way?
Right.
With patience and clarity and all the things that are hard to do if you're living in that fight flight.
Yeah, because I raised my son, I was definitely in survival mode. I did have some awareness, and there were moments of clarity, and the thing I am grateful that I did is that I recognized when I made mistakes with him, and I always owned up to it and always was vocal with him.
And that's so good. That's the repair piece that kids need. And when they can see you do that, it's sort of what we just talked about they see you're not perfect and it's okay. And you're like taking the responsibility.
Yeah.
And like, man.
Yeah. And the respect, I mean, yeah. I remember, there was one incident where, I was ready to kind of blow up at him. I don't know. This is such a weird thing. I was ready to blow up at him for something, and I never did that, really. And just as I was ready to I started laughing. It was the most bizarre response. It was a saving response, really,
Yeah.
and the look on his face, he went from, what's going on? And then all of a sudden he started laughing. And then I said to him, I said, honey, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm so glad I stopped myself, but let's not have this conversation right now. Okay, let's just set it aside and do what we need to do, and then we'll finish it. And he was so relieved. But it was such a weird response by me that and then I just started laughing. I don't know what that was.
You're being present. It's probably that moment of like presence where you're like, okay, and your brain just automatically like shifted or something.
It shifted in a second, and I was so glad too, because that was not I was always real careful with that with my son, and so anyway, I just thought that was really funny. Okay, so what are some practical ways parents can manage feelings of guilt or self-doubt about their parenting while working through their trauma? Because there is a lot of that. I still have some guilt.
Yeah, for sure. I think just knowing that when you heal yourself, you're going to be a better version of yourself, right? And so I do this analogy of like when we're on the plane, they always tell you to put your mask on first before you help someone else. I mean, that is just like an analogy for life, right? You have to be whole first, mentally, emotionally, physically, and then your kids will thrive. And so I think knowing that first, just really knowing that, and then being like, okay, where am I on the spectrum of that? And wherever I am, it's okay. But what can I do now to really become clear in what I need to do to be a parent, the best parent I can be?
A thought just came to me, or a question. When would it be appropriate? What would be maybe the appropriate age that you could sit down and have a conversation with your child and just I mean, of course, you can't divulge your past, right? Or the trauma. They can't manage that. But how would you explain to them, mom's going through something right now, and I might get, you might see mom get mad, or it was something to help them understand that mom's going through something and she's aware of it, and so that they are
Yeah.
aware too. What is that? Is there an appropriate age to do that?
I mean, I think we can kind of do it at any age with different language, right? So if you have like a little one, say you're a single parent and things are just really tough, and you have a 2 or 3 year old and you're having like a really hard day, and just even stating with a feeling word, I'm feeling really angry today. I'm not
Mm.
angry with you. I just had a bad day. I'm having anger. Um, and so, and then whatever it is, right?
Right.
Or I'm just really sad today. So just with little ones, just speaking just very generally about your feelings. And then they're gonna start using feeling words with you. And so I think with young ones, you can really do that. And then as you get older, just developmentally, whatever is appropriate, right?
Yeah.
You can always share, and I think kids will respect you for that whenever, if they, because they feel your energy anyway.
Yeah.
They
They
know
know
how you're.
something's up. They know something's up.
Yeah, and so I think if we're honest about it, it doesn't trick them, right? If we're having like a really bad moment and you're feeling really bad, but you're telling them you're okay, it's very confusing to their brain. And I mean, it's confusing to anyone's brain. If you're like, everything is great, but yet I just had like the worst day.
Yeah.
Um, it's confusing and it doesn't provide clarity within your relationship. So it strains the relationship too.
And
So,
then they can't trust you because what you're saying and what you're doing are two different things.
right. And it's not like it's your energy.
Yeah.
It's your energy. And they feel that kids, that's what they connect with you a lot of times through energy.
Yeah.
Or we all do,
Yeah,
really, through the
totally.
energy.
And we're teaching them about emotional regulation. We're teaching them about sharing our emotions. And yeah, because like you say, kids learn to articulate their emotions. That's not a natural thing for them to do. It's almost like this grown up thing that happens to them, and their little brains just aren't able to articulate what it is they have. But by you showing them, mom's sad today, and I feel sad, but it's okay. Just mom's feeling sad
Yep.
helps them. That
Yeah.
makes
And
so
they
much
can then,
sense.
yeah, because you could even be like, I'm just really angry. I need to go take a break for 5 minutes. I'll be right back. Just letting them know and being honest. And one of the little tips I give parents is putting like if you have little one and you're not used to doing this, putting like a poster on your fridge or a little printout from Google of feeling faces,
Mm-hmm.
right? Using them in sentences and using them like you're cooking dinner. Like I'm having like how do you feel right now? And go to the thing. I'm feeling happy and having the kids point at it. So having that just from the time they're little born, like 1 and 2, having those feeling faces up and just using those in everyday language all the time.
It's so true because, yeah, when I think about my growing up, especially if I cried, I'll give you something to cry about. Stop crying. It's like, you're not even asking me why I'm crying. You're just assuming.
Yeah, my big one was everyone would just call me dramatic. You're
Oh,
being
yeah.
dramatic. You're an actress.
Yeah.
You're dramatic. And it was like they thought it was funny. And just that was who I was. I was Anastasia, the drama queen. But really, that's like negating all of whatever it was that I was going through as a kid.
Right.
Um, and I know people still, my mom still does that. And I know she doesn't do it on purpose, but she'll still say that to me. And I'll be like, oh, I don't really, I'll verbalize now. I don't appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
I'm a drama queen. I just am an emotional person or
Right, but
whatever it is.
yeah, yeah, it's same with me. Yeah, some I get to, oh, you're over the top, or you're so emotional, and then you feel like, okay, there's something wrong with me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions about this episode, or really anything that has to do with trauma. So you can comment below, or you can reach out to me at asklisatickle@gmail.com. I'd really looking forward to hearing from you.
Right. No, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I was going to say on the last point I was making about parents, I'm going to lose my thought. The reason why parents, I'm going to lose my thought. Never mind. I got all wrapped up in the next question and then I lost it. So we'll just let it go.
Okay.
How can parents recognize, and I think you kind of answered this a little bit, but how can parents recognize when their past trauma is influencing their parenting style, and what steps can they take to create healthier patterns? So I kind of touched on that, like, I think a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's how your kids are acting too a lot of times. So if you notice your kids are really struggling with their behavior or they're not able to self-regulate or they struggle leaving you. I think even with attachment, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pick up, drop off with school. Those things are all things that they should just be doing naturally, right? They should be going to school on their own without crying. They should be going to bed in their bed. And there are times when kids will developmentally not do that. But for the most part, kids should be wanting to be independent and doing things on their own and not having temper tantrums. And if you notice that it's happening with your child all the time to the point where you're like seeking help or trying to find solutions because it's not going away, that there's something going on there. There's something with you in your relationship with them. There's something happening. And I think at that point, that's when you would question, like, is it me? Is it my partner? What's happening to why am I, is it a disability? I mean, what is it? I think that's when you really start asking questions and thinking about, is it you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because again, kids act up for a reason, and so it could be something at
Mm-hmm.
school, it could be something at, it could be a lot of things, but it's always good to inquire and find out and help them.
Yeah, and I really encourage parents to really, especially on this is another healing is journaling,
Mm,
right? Like say you journal. If there's something going on in your home, just journal every day about like what is there a pattern happening? Is it a pattern with you specifically? I'm really taking that time for yourself to just identify, become centered of what's happening in your world.
yeah, the
And
journaling is huge because that's true. You get to start seeing the cycles and patterns, and then
Mhm.
I know that I noticed mine in journaling, and then it made me aware of every day looking for that pattern in my life. And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, there it is. Oh, there's the cycle. Okay, here we go. I can predict exactly what's going to happen. I don't know how to stop it right now, but I see the pattern.
And that's the first step is seeing it, right? You
Yeah,
have to be aware of it.
yeah,
And then from there, you can start to make changes.
exactly, exactly. Okay, so what strategies can parents use to regulate their emotions in difficult
Mhm.
moments so they don't unintentionally pass down cycles of trauma to their children? Oof, that's a good one.
It is a good one. I think it's being aware, taking breaks, sharing with your partner or whoever you're parenting with, or if it's by yourself, like I need a break right now.
Yeah,
Learning to like tag team, um, learning finding the resources for yourself. Like, do you need a therapist? Do you need a coach to work with you? Are you getting what you need in regards to like exercise, friendship, like find like time for your own friendship and
yeah,
your own relationships? I think that we have to take care of ourselves and really if it's in the moment, taking that break, stopping yourself and walking away, especially when things are really, really off the. I remember one point during COVID, my stepson lived with us and he moved in like I guess a year before that happened. And it was a rough time. He was really struggling.
yeah.
He struggled at home and that's why he came with us. And he was a teenager and it was just really hard for teens, COVID
Oh
was really
man.
junior, senior during that time. And at one point I was not my best self and I had this pan in my hand and I like literally almost threw it and I was like I need to take a break and walk
Yeah,
away. And that was a rough time for all of us, but it was so hard for me to stop. And so many times our brains just want to keep
yeah,
going through. They don't want to stop.
yeah,
Um, and so just knowing it's hard. It's hard to stop and walk away. It's hard to stop and take that break. Um, but it's so important for the kids. And then to come back and do the repair and come back and be like, you know what, I lost my mind, kind of like you were saying. And I'm sorry that that happened.
yeah. I know, because I know that for me, what was my indicator is I could just feel myself. It just felt like I would be filled with frustration or anger, and I learned through the hard way that if I keep going, it doesn't get better. It doesn't get
Mm-mm.
better, it gets worse. And then it turns into a full blown screaming match,
Yeah.
probably. And what I learned is I do exactly that. I go, you know what? I just need a minute. I just need to kind of step away for a minute and I need to
Mhm.
process this. And that has been such a godsend for me because it gives me that moment of clarity of like, okay, am I being triggered? Is my anger justified? Is this, high intense anger justified? And then it helps me clarify that, and then it helps me come up with the answer. And then, like you say, I go back and clean up the mess.
And I think that's really good what you said. You were in touch with your body. And I think a lot of us aren't in touch with how our body's feeling. And there's so much, and that's another thing that wasn't really talked about years ago, is the mind body connection. Really paying attention to that. Like, what is your body feeling? Like,
Yeah,
you gave a good example just now of just like, what is my body feeling like? What does that anger feel like? And some people don't even know, a lot of people do not know what anger feels like in their body.
I know.
Where it's hard. And if you've never talked about it or you didn't grow up with that kind of language, you're not going to even think about that. But I do this exercise with kids a lot of like, where they'll feel different emotions in their body. Like, where do you feel happiness in your body? Where do you feel sadness? And it is remarkable about how, and it's a little coloring sheet I do, but it's so amazing of where some kids can really show me and other kids have no idea.
Ooh.
So it's really, really interesting. But I love doing that with them. I love doing that activity and just meeting them where they are with it and then just going from there. But it's an activity an adult can do too. Anybody, really. Like, where are you feeling these feelings in your
Exactly.
body?
And I share that because I want to help listeners identify those feelings in their body, because and where I really felt it the first time, it wasn't even that long ago. It was like maybe a year ago, and it was
Hmm.
situation happened, and I it was instantly I went from calm to the only way I can describe it, and I literally slowed down and really paid attention to how it felt, because I was like, this is something, and I need to share this. And that is, I felt the anger in every part of my body. That's the only way I can describe it. It was like it completely consumed me. And that's what got my attention, because that reaction or that feeling did not line up at all with what was going on. But it did. It
Yeah.
felt like every part of my body had anger in it. It
Interesting.
was interesting. And that was the first time I ever really noticed it to that degree. And when I started to feel, I'm like, okay. And my first reaction was, of course, to overreact. And I'm like, no, can't do that. So I thought, no, feel this, feel this. What does this feel like? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is like, there's no place in my body that I didn't feel anger.
Wow.
And so I kind of verbalized it a little bit, not inappropriately. And then I just stood back, and I do my breathing exercises,
Yeah.
and that helped bring it down. And then I understood. And what it was is I felt disrespected. The person that did what happened did not intentionally at all
Right.
mean to disrespect me. But I had to go, okay, why did I react so over the top? And 100% it was because I felt disrespected. And it goes back to that little girl in me. When she felt
Mhm.
disrespected, I could take it right back to even a story. It was crazy.
And then interesting. And you know, when I can feel that is when I can figure out why I'm being triggered, I'll want to cry. And that's
Yeah,
how I know. And you probably felt that. That's how you know you're like, that's it. That's what the trigger
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Because you'll hear yourself get emotional. And I'll be like, okay, that's why I'm upset right now.
yeah. And it's
And that's
intense.
always yes. That's always my clue of like what it is that's triggering me.
Yeah, especially when you go from you're calm to whoa, over the
Yeah.
top. I mean, that it was so
Yeah.
obvious to me. I think God was showing me, here, watch this, and I just kind of sat back and I did, and it did not feel good, and it was just like, God, I got to get this feeling out of me, because it was just so overwhelming. But I also knew at that moment I had the ability and power to turn this around. That
Mhm.
this thing, it wasn't just taking control of me.
Yeah.
But I'm sharing this because I want the listeners to understand this is how it feels. And so start paying attention to your body. It is going to talk to you. It's going to tell you,
It does.
right?
Yeah, when I get anxiety really bad, I can feel that. That's something that I can
In the
feel,
chest.
and it's like, yeah, I feel it here, and it's like this shaking feeling. So I can feel that. Like I can identify most feelings now, but it's not. That wasn't a natural thing for me. That was something I've worked on for years, is
Right.
being able to feel my body and feel what's happening in it.
Yeah. Part of that was the way we were raised. We weren't allowed to share our
Yes.
emotions. And, like you said,
Yeah.
we're
No.
both dramatic. We're over the top. We're too much. No, I'm
Yeah.
just emotional. Please
What's
work
going
with
on?
me. Okay, so how can parents model self compassion and an emotional resilience for their children while still navigating their own healing journey?
That's so nice. I think by knowing how to regulate your emotions and just being present with them and focusing when you notice their feeling, right? When you notice their anger or sadness or whatever it is, being with them and not really asking a lot of questions, just being with. Um,
Mm.
and and even asking, what do you need from me right now? What do you need from
Oh,
me?
yeah.
That's a great, instead of being like, what's wrong with you? Why are you
Ooh,
crying? What happened? It's more like, I see you're sad. I see you're really upset. I see, what do you need from me? And a lot of times they might not know. So you might say, do you need a hug? Do you need a break? So you can always offer suggestions because they might be in a moment where they can't cognitively process what they need.
yeah.
And then it's just like, I'm here for you whenever you need me. If you need to take a break, you can go to your room. But whenever you're ready, I'm here. And we can talk about what you need.
One thing you keep saying, and I think it is so true, is that you need to be present for your children. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I when I was in survival mode, of course, I wasn't as much as I should have been at the time. I don't like using that word should have, but but there were times that I absolutely made myself present. And now it's funny with my grandchildren, they'll even if I'm sitting there and I'm on my phone, they'll walk over and put the phone down. And
Yeah.
they
They
want
don't
my
like it.
and I'm okay. Yep, I'll put the phone down. They're not doing it inappropriately. It's just, it's they want my attention right now, and I will turn to them and I will absolutely give them 100% of my attention. And I so get that. That's all they want is they just want you to be
Yeah.
present.
And I think the phones are such, like I talk about this all the
Ugh.
time. Phones are just so much of a presence sucker. They take the presence away. And I'm guilty of it.
Me too.
Um, we all are. And so we have to just be so conscious of when we have the phone, where we have the phone, having those phone-free zones in your home. I mean, it all sounds silly, but it's so important. Like, because your
Yes.
kids, they do not like when you're not able, or when you're at the soccer game, you're not on your phone, or when
Yeah.
you're there, you're really there with them, watching and listening and making eye contact's another one. If you notice, a lot of times we don't have a lot of eye contact going on anymore.
True. That is so true.
Um, have making eye contact with your children, touch. That's a really big one too. So
Hmm.
I think being able to be present and put the phone down is so, so important.
Our border collies, we got two border collies. They won't even let us when we call snuggle time at night. It's so funny. If I pick up my phone, they literally push it out of my hand.
Oh,
Literally.
that's so
They
funny.
will not, and it's like, okay, I put it down and they just want my attention
Yeah,
and that's fine. But it's funny. How can dogs know that? So if dogs know
that's
that,
we all need border collies. That's so cool. Like,
they will not let us be on the phone.
oh wow, that's so
I know,
cute.
it's
Yeah.
adorable. They're spoiled rotten. They are spoiled rotten, let me tell you. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that answered those questions. I always have one last question that I like to ask my guests. And what is it you would like to leave our listeners with?
Oh yeah, for sure. And people ask me this a lot. It always goes back to that phone situation. Just it's really just being present with your kids. That's what I see the biggest issue is a lot of times with families is the time that they're spending. Um, it's not necessarily the amount of time, it's the type of time you're with
Quality.
your the quality versus the quantity. And so when you're with them, be with them. Be with them, pay attention to them, sit on the floor with them, um, do what they want. Don't ask them 1,000 questions. Just be with. That's the biggest
Play
thing I
with
would like to
them.
say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Be with.
You had some good tips you started to share though, like of the like a phone free zone, or even like I was thinking like even setting time aside, let's just say 15 minutes, it might be more than that, where
Mhm.
you literally turn the TV off, turn the music off, and
Yeah.
just sit with them, do what they want to do, right?
It's so good. And as they get older, it's harder because they just want to be on the electronics. They want to be on
Yeah.
the computer. They want to be on the TV. So you have to really set all these boundaries and be consistent. And if you can start it younger, right? The younger you start it, the easier it is as they become older. But even as they're older, like I have an 11-year-old right now, and I've been doing this kind of stuff since he was born. I've been obsessed with his brain and raising him. I mean, I've been over the top about making sure he's like gonna be okay emotionally. But we still have our everyday, please get off YouTube. We're not playing
Yeah.
Fortnite right now. I use my time limits. This is no electronics happening right now in the house. But this is an every single day conversation that we have. We're not, and there are rules or boundaries I put in place. Like during the week, there's no Fortnite. During the week, we're not having the TV on during these hours. So it's
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
conversations about what the expectations are. And so it's the boundaries and the rules, but it's also conversations with him. So as kids get older, it's really conversing, connecting, sharing, coming up with ideas together of why we're setting all these expectations.
That's one thing I am glad I did with my son, because when he was born in 1990, so you kind of
Okay.
get an idea. So the video games were they were very popular then, and I remember the dilemma of getting him one, and I was like, because I didn't want him on there, and so we set very strict boundaries that, during the week he was allowed to have like a certain, I don't remember, like an hour a night, but he had to have all his homework done, everything done. And we literally set a timer, and
Yeah.
he could earn more time for the weekend, and he didn't get that much more time for the weekend, or it could be taken away based on what
Yeah.
he did. And he carried that into his teenage years, and even into his adult life for a while. He says, I still kind of struggle with wanting to play. There's still that urge. I think it's just the whole nature of the video games, and we were also very selective of which video games that he was allowed to play. Very, very structured about that. And he carried that into his adult life. So it was a really good habit. But I was very concerned, because I know of parents that, yeah, sure, you can go play video games, back then, and not pay attention to what they're doing. And then my son shared with me a few years ago how he witnessed, like on YouTube or something, he was watching this kid playing a video game with adults. He was like 9 years old, and he was cussing at him, cussing, and just the F word, and just cussing at him and screaming at him. The mom walked in the door, and the guy on the screen said, hey, your son is sitting here kind of going off on me. And she turned around and went off on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that whole video game thing it's a little scary. It gets,
It is.
it's dark.
And you have to be, that's something that we struggle with. I think with boys, it's different than girls.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something we really, in my own personal life, struggle with. So we allow him, but we have all our boundaries and things. But I don't even let him do them in his room. We have a pretty big kitchen, family room area.
Where you
So
can watch them.
yeah, and so he's on it there, and the computer is right there. So I hear it all the time. I hear the conversations. But it's still, he wants it in his room. It's a conversation again we have all the time.
Yeah.
He really wants to move it. He's old enough now. He tells me, so no, we're not moving it to your room. So it's just really knowing and being clear on what your parenting beliefs are, what your values are, and sticking to them, because the kids are tough. They will figure out ways to try to change your mind.
And I'm sure that you explained to him why as well. It's it's not that old way that we were raised. I just, because I told you so.
Yeah.
It's no, because the safety reasons and everything.
Yeah, no, we've gone over all of the reasons, and yeah, he's aware. It's just hard. That's what they love to do, and it's
Yeah.
addictive. That itself is addictive, and so
Yeah, and their
it's a
friends
tough.
are playing, and it just
Right.
yeah. But
It's the hardest.
it is
I mean,
hard. It's challenging. I'm glad I never got into them, frankly.
I know. My mom always says, "I'm so glad I did not raise kids now," compared to like, because there's just that technology piece
The
added into
the
everything.
technology piece is really scary. How the pedophiles and everything are getting into.
Yeah, just
Oh,
yeah.
it's frightening. It's frightening. Boy, that's a whole nother subject. But anyway, well, why don't you share with the audience how they could reach out to you if they wanted to connect with you? And all this will be in the show notes too.
Okay. So I'm on Instagram. It's anastasia.arauz. So you can find me there. I also have my website, which is Anastasia Arauz. I try to keep it simple, which is my name. They can always send me an email. If you go to my website, you can email me through there, or definitely on Instagram, email me through there, and I will get back to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing these great tips. I'm very excited about it, and I think it's going to be very helpful. And I think it's going to make parents feel better too, because we sure walk around with a lot of guilt.
Yeah, there's nothing to be guilty. Just meet kids where they are, meet yourself where you are, and it'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.